Should you be fearful that you're getting older, and you're still in school? Yeah. If you're a man and you're 40 or 50 or 60 and you're single and you're lonely and you're depressed, should you fear that you're going to get older and sicker and you're going to die alone, get sick alone? Yeah, you should fear all of that. The idea that I don't want to fear that, well, what are you going to do? You're going to continue going to the therapist office. You're going to be even more lonely. You're going to be 70. You have no one in your life, and you're going to be sick alone, and you're going to be dying alone. And that's a painful place to be. And if you want to protect your relationship, and you know that when your companion comes home, they're going to scream because you haven't washed the dishes, fear that. Go home 10 minutes earlier and wash the dishes. It's great. It's only when you have a great amount of privilege and you happen to be profoundly stupid and unrefined that you just have no fear inside you. You have people signing up for classes, never showing up, never doing any work. And they think like it's really good for them, that the fact that they just don't care, it gives them so much freedom. All right, so you're 18 and you don't care. Then soon you'll be 20, then you'll be 30. And then the things you didn't fear now cause regret. And then you become angry for being so stupid in your teens. So yeah, it's good to be fearful of a whole host of things. And the other thing is life is dangerous, man. Especially right now you walk in Oakland. You got to be fearful. You have to be paranoid. And you're not paranoid because you're silly. You're paranoid because of the things you hear on the news. You see on TV, people walking broad daylight and they get mugged. You're driving. All of a sudden, a car stops in front of you, another stops behind you, two people jump out, and they drag you out, steal your car. You're not paranoid for silly reasons. You're paranoid because life has given you some insights. You've been doing drugs, now you want to sober up. And you want to sober up because you've understood a few things. But you have some crummy friends about you. And every time, as Godfather, you want to get out, your crummy friends pull you back in. And you sit back and you say, I've spent enough time, just doping up. And you fear that. You fear kind of losing more time, losing more youth. That's a good fear to have. The problem with this culture is that you just have so many things. It's like going to Costco. There's so many options. No one talks about getting old. No one talks about the brutalities of life. It's just a ridiculous culture with stupid little narratives. And part of it really has to do with all these philosophers telling us, live your life, be authentic, be creative. No, don't do that. If you want to be authentic playing the piano, learn the goddamn lessons, read the notes, play the basic music for the first 10 years. Then if you want to be creative, be creative. Have no education, no money, no parents, no friends. All you have is loneliness and despair and depression, and you also want to be creative and authentic. How silly is that? When I first met Chris and he told me he's happy working at Zachary's and working at Zachary's for the rest of his life, he was only 22, when he told me that nugget of wisdom. Hello. I had this fear for him. I was afraid for him because I saw myself in him. And I saw the regrets that began to bubble up inside me as I aged. And I knew he was going to have it. And I know all of you are going to have it. That's just the way life is. When you miss opportunities, regret comes about. You know. But all that aside, anyone else with anything less interesting? Yeah, yeah.
Something, not really a question, but since you just mentioned regret, I guess I kind of always felt like kind of regret things that I haven't tried doing rather than things that I have tried to do. Now that, if that makes sense. Like, I skipped out on playing one of the seasons in my high school football seasons for no reason other than I wanted to have fun. But now looking back at it, I'm like, man, now I'm not in high school no more. I wish I just did one more season because, you don't have that time anymore. But, I don't regret the time that I did play it and then, good stuff. Just small example. I don't know.
Some of it is, I think, temperamental. My brother likes to travel. No. It's all good. You haven't missed anything.
Okay, good.
We've just been city all morning.
Okay. Now you guys can decide.
Thank you. I guess it depends on the things you value. I don't care about football. I don't care about tennis. I don't really care about much, and it happens as you get a little older. I have no answer for that. Yeah.
How do you come to a place where you can forgive or accept trauma, growing up?
So there are two sorts of events that happen in life. I go home and there's an earthquake. There isn't much I can do. I can scream, I can shout, and I do, I will, but I have no power over the forces of nature. Okay? And though it'll take me some time to kind of fix the house, make sure everything's okay, I'll eventually accept the fact that nature has more power than I. Then there are other events in life that are not organic, they're manufactured. Imagine for a moment that I am your father, and I happen to just be I have my own set of issues. I never come to pick you up from school. When I do come to pick you up, I'm always angry. The days when you come home and I'm there, I'm usually drunk, maybe even physically abusive. I'm just a crummy human being. And you look at your friends and you realize, well, the dad comes and picks them up every single day. They have a great time, they laugh. And you say, well, why can't I have that? And because we are need-based animals, you need your father to hold you. You need him to hold your hand and walk with you. You need to have fun. You need to feel comfortable. You need to not feel threatened, all that stuff. And you realize you don't have any of that. There was a study done at Stanford about two chimps. One young chimp is put in this cage, and food is thrown at the chimp. And the chimp has no companions. She lives in this cage all alone. And then there is another chimp in a cage, but with other chimps. And food is not thrown, but put on a plate and gently placed before him. And once in a while, someone from the outside pets him. And they both reach adulthood. The chimp who was raised in isolation and was never petted, food was always thrown at him, he became very, very violent. And eventually they had to put him to sleep. The chimp, on the other hand, who lived amongst other chimps, food was given to him gently and he was petted, he was wonderful. And you're not talking about powers of observation or reflection. You're not talking about guilt and acceptance. Your social environment creates emotions, sometimes profoundly toxic. Okay? Our advantage as well as disadvantage is that we can be easily be put to sleep. We are filled with anger and regret and rage. And you need years of therapy to understand the emotions because it leaks into every part of your life. So it's really, really complicated. You can't simply wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to read this book and tomorrow I'm going to accept and forgive and all that stuff. It doesn't work that way. Because what you're dealing with rage is, it's like a house. It has taken you about 10, 15 years for it to be built. It has a lot of stuff in it. A lot of bedrooms, you know. It has a lot of things that you don't know about. And all you have is a moment of inspiration, which is, I am getting older. Because of this history, I have lost all the stuff. I no longer want to have it. And some people are very lucky temperamentally, intellectually. They can go cold turkey. They wake up in the morning and everything's gone. For 99.9% of the people, we're not as lucky. You know, and what you have to do is kind of like you have to clean house. Because what you want to do is you want to remodel. You want to make your life into something different. You know, and if you've ever cleaned your house really, really well, you leave no stone unturned. And that's a lot of things to go through and to understand. And the problem into going to new bedrooms or tackling with new emotions or historical stories is that you find yourself having more emotions than before because now you see things better. And as you see things better, initially, you'll have a lot of negative emotions. If you're able to work on them after 10, 15, 20 years, you understand it for yourself. But this understanding is not tested. So let's say you leave me as your father, you understand a few things, and then you think you're ready. Or maybe you and I just accidentally run into each other around the lake. And you thought you had a good grasp of all of this, that you have accepted, you have forgiven and all that. The moment you see me, like a volcano, this rage erupts. And you kind of say, really, after 10 years of studying and observing, how could this be? Now you've been tested. You need more work. And the truth is, I don't really know. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like a revelation. If Jesus had a revelation, Moses had a revelation, the idea of forgiveness and acceptance, they're really very much like revelations. You work, you have this desert life, you go into seclusion, you pray, you cry, however way you want to. And after maybe 15, 20 years, you one day wake up and you say, you know what? I think it's okay. And then you run into me. How it happens, I don't really know. I don't think there's a how to. I think it's just a magic that all of a sudden just happens. But the magic happens at the end because of all the work you have done previously. Yeah. You know, when you fix a crack on your windshield early on, it takes maybe 30 minutes, $50. If you wait, what will happen is cracks will appear everywhere. And I think life is kind of like that. First you see something, that's a tiny little crack. And if you don't take care of it, especially if it's foundational, there'll come a point where there isn't much you can do. It's just going to shatter in your face. But the point ultimately I'm trying to make is, if you're very interested in forgiveness and acceptance and all of that, know that it's kind of like playing the piano. It takes a good amount of curiosity and interest and passion. And there comes a point where you're no longer going to be inspired. And you need to be disciplined enough to sit your behind down and look at the emotions After a while, it's not fun sitting at the piano and playing. But you need to stretch out your fingers. You need to discipline your hand. You need to discipline your feet. And there is no inspiration in that. It's just hard work. And it sucks. But if you do it, 10 years later, you'll be at Zellerbach Theater in Berkeley, performing in front of like 5,000 people. Do not believe anything that this culture tells you about the how-tos. If you do ABCD, you'll get there. Do the ABCDs, but whether or not you'll get there, it's not up to us. At least I don't think. You go to school, you find a couple of interesting instructors, they inspire you to major in math, and you assume that you're going to be just as good as they are. Then you walk in the classroom, and the classroom tests you, and then you realize, oh, I really suck. I thought I'm going to be Socrates, but I'm not. But you shouldn't quit. It still pays the rent, puts some food on the table. That's good enough. Anyone? Maria, yes. Yeah. Abi. Freedom? It's a really difficult thing to talk about. It's difficult because it's like this gigantic tree with so many branches and fruits, and I'm not really quite sure what point I should start. If we go back to the question given to us by Jesus, about forgiveness and acceptance, if I was to ask, how do I forgive my father? That's a serious question. It's a question that if you pay close attention to the history behind the question, if you happen to be somewhat perceptive, why would this question come up at all? What is the need to ask this question? Why do you, as my daughter, want to forgive me as your father? Well, because it's a question that's been haunting you for the past 20 years. It has held you hostage. It has ruined your relationships. It has given birth to a good amount of anger over which you have no control, and it leaks out uncontrollably. The moment you are born with just being stupid and ignorant of a whole host of things. That in itself is a profound imprisonment. And we are engaged animals. You have no choice but to be engaged in life. And to be engaged means you make decisions, knowingly or not. And when you don't have the proper information, you engage, but you make a lot of mistakes. Those mistakes come back to haunt you. They create emotions. You won't like those emotions. You want freedom from those emotions. Not only are you held hostage by your physical body because you have limitations. You're held hostage by the emotions created by your physical body being engaged in the physical world. Your mom looks at you a certain way. Your mom cooks a certain food for you and you don't like it. You say, yuck. Now you say, I'm hungry, give me something. And your mom says no. And somehow you have to kind of figure out what the hell you want to do. You come to this class. It says philosophy. You thought it to be interesting. You experience it to be profoundly boring and uninteresting. But you have to be here for 16 weeks. You have a job. It inspired you because of the paycheck, maybe even having your own cubicle. But now it's boring. And you realize from the moment you're born to the time you die, you keep becoming engaged in this and that, and everything lives in time. Inspiration turns into boredom. Boredom turns into frustration, and somehow you want to find a way out. There is, and even if you're like the Buddha, I mean, look, Aldous Huxley, this is a man who sought freedom. Freedom in thinking. And it's something that Karl Marx talked about, that if you really, really, really want freedom, it can only be found in imagination. If you truly want to experience freedom at its very core, find a moment when you're inspired. Sit and write. And for an hour, for 2 hours, maybe even for 10 minutes, and you realize you have written something that does not belong to space and time. And then you long, when that moment passes, you say, I want to write like this again. But you can't. The experience imprisons you because you want to copy it again, but it doesn't come to you organically. It came to you as a gift. It's stolen from you by the very source that gave it to you, and now you have to wait. Aldous Huxley was one of those folks who had these very, very many moments of inspiration where he experienced freedom. Then his wife got cancer. And he couldn't bear to see her go through so much pain. Then in his second marriage, he himself got really sick. I think he got cancer. And then he was in touch with someone from Canada who had first discovered certain types of drugs. Then he called them and said, listen, I'm going through this stuff. It's really, really painful. And even though you realize you have someone who is free from the sofas and tables and chairs of the world, he likes ideas and he plays with ideas and he sits most often and just writes. I mean, it's such a gift to be given to you by life that you don't care about going to school. You don't care about the judgments of other people. You're okay with just eating water and bread every single day. The only thing you want to do is just write. That's all you want to do. And then you realize you are sick and your body is now imprisons your mind and it creates emotions you don't want to have. I'm very much like Freud. You say, I'll do coke, but just enough to numb the pain a little so I can continue with my work. دردی است غیر مردن کان را دوا نباشد پس من چگونه گویم که این درد را دوا کن. That the ultimate freedom for any human being really is death. Once you die, and Stoics to some extent were right. Epicurus, who was not a Stoic, I don't know if we have a soul. I don't know if there is a God. And I don't know if there is punishment or reward after you die. All I know is that when I die, I no longer have to read essays by students. I no longer have to listen to my kids. I no longer be harassed by my wife. I no longer have to be worrying about rent or money or this or that. I will go into this non-feeling state for eternity. That's my freedom. As long as you're alive, and as long as you're quacking and breathing, there are forces out there that will push you into this system called prison. And somehow you have to manage. Even if you're free, but you yearn to find an answer to a question, that question imprisons you. It robs you of rest, of peace, of comfort, of having friends, of laughing, of having a good time. The yearning won't leave you alone. But it's not so much, I think, about freedom. It's choosing the prison you want to be in. Choose the prison, and the problem with you choosing the prison is you have to be profoundly insightful and knowledgeable and having a good amount of experience. There is this movie called Stigmata where this priest has to come to New York to figure out why this girl is having these wounds, these 5 wounds that Jesus suffered. And eventually they become good friends. They're sitting having coffee. And the woman looks at the priest and says, well, were you never interested in women or sex or this or that? He says, oh, yes, I was. But I also wanted to be a priest. And I realized that both lives have their own set of issues, and I had to sit back and ask, okay, what sort of issues do I want to deal with for most of my life? Do I want to deal with the issues of a romantic relationship or issues that come with having a relationship with God? And I chose the God part. Once you have gone through a good amount of reflection, introspection, we say, okay, you know what? This may not be the best man or the best woman, but they're 50% good, 49% bad. And in this day and age, finding someone who's 51% good is really good. And despite all the flaws, I will be okay with that prison. And hopefully I will learn to accept and forgive. If I was to be a bit more candid, I would say the following. Every single one of you in this class have a different set of passions in life. I'm not here to teach you philosophy. I don't know what philosophy is. I know what I like. I know the sort of ideas I enjoy. And that's because the prison system I lived in, culturally Iran, I have parents who are somewhat religious. Then I ran into Hussein. And he gave me this humongous prison to be in. Lots of bedrooms. Lots of houses and mansions in it. One day I read Plato, who believes in God. The next day I read Noam Chomsky, who doesn't give a shit about God. And both bedrooms are good. They're fun to be in. There's no conflict. I enjoy both of them. And my job here is to contaminate those who are somewhat interested. I want you to be interested in my kind of philosophy. And if you become interested, you will come to the office. I will infect you more. And I will force you to go to school. Not to study math, but to do philosophy. Why? I have power. What kind of power? When you do get your master's degree, I can get you part-time jobs. You will make $90 an hour. Just coming to class and just talking. That's a good prison to be in. You may be an incompetent instructor, but once in a while you will have moments of inspiration. Once in a while, you will have students who are interested in the things you talk about. Once in a while, you will have insights about your own potential. That's enough. And your best companions will be books and ideas. You can't find a better prison than that. Will you find guards in this prison who will torment you? Absolutely. Plato will make you feel that your life sucks. It's little. But it's a good feeling to have because you'll strive to be bigger, to be better. مرغ باغ ملکوتم نیم از عالم خاک 2-3 روزی قفسی ساختند از بدنم. I have these moments of inspiration where I find myself in the Garden of Eden, paradise. I write poetry. I play tennis, and I don't know how it happens. I engage in these great conversations where just ideas just flow really well. And they don't come through, they don't come out of me, they just come through me, And then I take a philosophy class. And then my instructor looks at me and says, do you have any questions about René Descartes? I said, I don't care about Descartes, but... And I realize my instructor clips my wings, the wings of inspiration. I want to ask my instructor, tell me about philosophy, about wisdom, about love, about the path to wisdom, about the path to love. But all he wants to do is more body and mind. I don't care about those things, but I need a grade. So my wings get clipped. And all of a sudden I find myself in this cage. And I lose my voice. And I lose my creativity. That's how life is. While young, choose your prisons well. When you get older, sickness will have you. And you better have a companion when you're old and sick. So you know, 2 of my arteries were clogged about 90%. 1 was clogged 75%. Stroke could have happened to me anytime, especially in my classes when I get excited. So now that my arteries are unclogged, I can scream and shout and be animated. And hopefully things will be okay. For those of you in this class who have some age on you and you're still in school, there is nothing wrong with that. Remember, you need units. You need to pass your classes. I teach summer. I teach next semester. Take as many classes as you wish from me. Just be in touch, communicate. I will give you grades. I will give you units. So you can get done with Laney quickly. So you can go to a 4-year school and get your life hopefully in order. Okay? Remember, life is about politics played well. I'm from the Middle East, so I'm very bribeable. Do you guys know what a bribe is? Yeah? The only reason why we're not talking is Maria is asleep and we don't want to wake her up. It's good to see all of you. Thank you for being patient with all of my rants and useless things that I say. Have a nice weekend. Take care of yourselves. Tell your parents I said hello. Did you have a dream? Welcome to life. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Take good care.
Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.